important. It emerged this week that the Competition Authority is investigating allegations that an illegal cartel in the West is driving up the price of concrete. The senior executive of a company which is now in receivership alleges that the operation of the cartel is still in existence. During the summer, the executive gave a statement to the Competition Authority about his company's involvement in an illegal price-fixing cartel in the concrete industry in the West. And this is something that has been featured on the RT News yesterday. On the line now is Seamus Maye from Cullinamore in Strandhill and Sligo, who once owned a cement company. And Seamus, we've talked to you many times before, and you always maintained that there was evidence of cartels operating, didn't you?
Well, that's correct. Before I go into the actual cement and concrete cartel and the allegations, I'd just like to point out that the Irish Competition Authority has estimated that competition abuses, anti-competitive practices are costing the state in the region of $4 billion per year. And we must look at that in perspective. The Anglo-Irish collapse has cost the country about $35 billion. But the lack of competition enforcement in the country throughout the noughties alone has cost the country 40 billion euros. Now, we've been alleging for over 20 years that there's been cartels throughout the concrete and the cement industry and the ground limestone industry right across the 26 counties.
And you've good grounds for that, because you were directly involved in the business yourself, along with family members. So you know what was going on, or you believe you know what was going on.
Well, we are 15 years in court attempting to bring our case across the line, and our case has been frustrated by the state. I mean, we're looking at a sort of economic phenomenon called regulatory capture here, where the large corporations actually capture the government, they capture the regulatory authorities, and that's what happened with Patrick Neary in the financial regulator, and we have the same problem with the Competition and the Company Law Enforcement Office. And until we change our culture, until we change this rotten ethos that pervades all of the political parties, we'll never change things.
Okay, and is that the problem? As you say, you've been fighting your own case for 15 years, and is that what you're finding, that it's the problem is a political one, and the political culture which was prevalent at that time?
There's no question about it. The culture, I'm afraid, is still prevalent. Fine Gael have made all kinds of commitments to our group. We have a group called the Irish Small Business Alliance. Fine Gael have made all kinds of commitments to take on this problem of competition enforcement. And quite frankly, after 6 months in office, we are very, very disappointed. And we had recently had a meeting with the Minister for Small Business, John Perry, and the jury is out, but we're not hopeful.
In what way? Because are they not taking on board what you're saying, or is there a lack of interest, do you think, or what is it?
There appears to be, well, I put it all down to regulatory capture. I mean, when you have the body corporate financing the body politic, you've got a problem. You've immediately got a huge conflict of interest, and this is what has to be dealt with. We went to one of the particular parties, just for example. We went to one party and we had a very, very extensive meeting and briefing session. And when they didn't come back, they were astonished. They were horrified at what we had to say. And when they didn't come back, we reapproached them. And they said, oh yes, we brought that up at the top level, and we were told we cannot go there. And this was go there against the largest company in this country.
Okay, well, it looks like you're going to have to go there now, judged by the latest revelations.
Well, you see, the problem is this, and this is why the country is in so much trouble. We have been trying to bring a case through the courts for 15 years. We have been frustrated at every turn by the state. Now there's a queue forming. More and more people are forming a queue behind us to take cases. If we cannot get these cases across the line, if the Competition Authority doesn't turn around and do its job, what is going to happen is we are all going to take cases against the state and the taxpayer is going to be facing more multi-billion euro claims.
Okay, now your case is that you were aware, your company was aware, and were disadvantaged by the operation of this cartel in your days, isn't that correct? So bigger companies were colluding and meeting to restrict competition and driving up prices. Is that what was going on? That's
correct. Well, what they were doing was, on the cement side, they were artificially increasing or inflating the price of cement, which the dominant players had control of, and then downstream in the concrete market, where there was competitors like me that were not wanted, they lowered the price of the concrete product, subsidising those lowered prices with the artificially high cement profits. And it's very, very easy. You can put anybody out. You could say how long it will take to eliminate somebody from the market. And at the end of the day, okay, all of us people in business suffered, and we've suffered huge damages, but the consumer ultimately suffers. And like the cost base in this country is the problem. I mean, that is why there's such the politicians are making such a fuss about the 12.5% corporation tax rate, because if that rate is changed, all of these American companies will just leave Ireland. There would be an exodus because our cost base is too high, and it's too high because the Competition Authority and the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment and all of these people with responsibility for business are not doing their job, because they are being fooled and they're being taken in by the big corporations, who ultimately are the same people that are funding the body politic.
Okay, well, the Competition Authority doesn't comment on individual cases, but it is investigating these allegations of cartels. But if it's proven that there was a cartel in operation, I mean, that has serious consequences, doesn't it, for all sorts of organisations and companies?
It would mean basically if a cartel is proven, everybody that was affected by that cartel, be it the county council, be it all of the county councils, be it the developers, builders, anybody that was buying the product, they will have a claim against the people found to have been operating the cartel.
Your company went out of business, Seamus. Was it because of what you allege was going on?
We were forced out of business because of anti-competitive practices that were forced upon us by the dominant company in the industry and others. There's 7 or 8 defendants in our case, but they were aided and abetted and condoned by the body politic, and I'm talking about all of the political parties, not just one.
Okay, and your case, as you see, you've been 15 years trying to fight this. Is it still an ongoing process or not?
Yeah, we have an application in before the High Court. It's going to be heard in the beginning of October to switch our case into the new competition court. Excuse me.
That's okay.
To switch our case into the new competition court. And as we've got a lot of proof over the last 6 months, we have recently received a motion from CRH, which is one of the main defendants in our case, and they're seeking to strike our action out that will be heard the first month or the first week in November.
Okay, so it was with great interest that you heard this news, which was broken on RTE this week in relation to the allegations that a cartel was in operation in the West. I mean, that's obviously of direct importance.
Yeah, well, I mean, the real surprise is that the news didn't break 20 years ago or 30 years ago. The cartel, I have absolutely first-hand knowledge of when the cartel started. It started in the early 80s, and the Midwest cartel, the cartel that was referred to yesterday on RTE, that started, the first meeting was in a pub in Headford in the early 80s. I have it all documented and I know all about it, and that's how long this behaviour has been going on.
Okay, Seamus, thanks for joining us. That's Seamus Maye there of Cullinamore.